Aisha Thompson's sneakers squeaked softly against the polished marble floor of Sterling Towers, Manhattan's glittering monument to wealth. At 25, she navigated the building's opulent corridors with the practiced ease of someone who belonged, though she knew she didn't. A black woman from a Brooklyn neighborhood, where stoops doubled as living rooms, Aisha carried her cleaning cart like a shield, its wheels whispering against the silence of the 52nd floor. Her crisp and navy uniform hid the dreams stitched into her heart to become an interior designer, transform spaces into stories, and escape the grind of early mornings and late-night study sessions. Tuition bills loomed in her inbox, a constant reminder of why she was here, swiping her master key at the door of Penthouse 52A. Sterling Towers wasn't just a building. It was a microcosm of Manhattan's elite, where every resident was a name in headlines or a face on magazine covers. Aisha had cleaned for hedge fund titans, fashion moguls, and tech prodigies, each apartment a testament to privilege. But none matched the aura of Ethan Caldwell's penthouse. The tech billionaire, a white man whose software empire reshaped industries, was a ghost in his home. In 6 months, Aisha had glimpsed him only twice. Tall, sharp-suited, his blue eyes distant, as he nodded curtly before disappearing into his world of boardrooms and private jets. Gossip among the cleaning staff painted him as cold, untouchable, a man who lived for numbers and power, not people. The door clicked open, and Aisha stepped into a space that took her breath away as always. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline, dawn's golden light spilling across Italian marble floors. The air smelled faintly of cedar and steel, a sterile elegance. Minimalist furniture, a sleek leather sofa, a glass coffee table stood like sculptures, untouched by the chaos of daily life. No photos adorned the walls. No books lay open. No coffee mugs lingered in the sink. It was beautiful, but lonely, a canvas begging for warmth. Aisha, who'd grown up in a cramped apartment bursting with color and clutter, felt curious. Who lived like this? And why? She adjusted her cart, careful not to graze the pristine surfaces. Her mind wandered to her latest design project, a mood board of earthy tones and textured fabrics, inspired by the homes she cleaned but could never afford. She imagined this penthouse with sage-green walls, woven rugs, and maybe a bookshelf filled with dog-eared novels. Shaking her head, she refocused. Dreams were for later. Now she had work to do. She started in the living room, dusting the entertainment system, her reflection flickering on the black screen. Dark circles shadowed her brown eyes, evidence of another night, hunched over her laptop, sketching layouts, while her roommate Lucy snored softly nearby. "Just 2 more years," she whispered, straightening her apron. 2 more years of scrubbing floors, dodging judgmental glances from residents, and saving every penny for design school. The penthouse was always empty at this hour. Like most residents, Ethan followed a predictable rhythm out by 7:00 a.m., back after 8:00 p.m. Aisha moved methodically, her routine a comforting ritual. She vacuumed the Persian rug, polished the chrome fixtures, and wiped down the kitchen island, her hands steady despite the weight of her thoughts. The main bedroom was last. She knocked softly, a habit born of caution, and pushed the door open. Steam billowed from the ensuite bathroom, a faint hum of water echoing. Her stomach dropped. No one was supposed to be here. Before she could back out, the bathroom door swung wide. Ethan Caldwell stepped out, a white towel slung low around his hips, water droplets trailing down his chest. His hair, dark and damp, clung to his forehead, and those piercing blue eyes locked onto hers. Time froze. Aisha's cleaning supplies clattered to the floor, the sound deafening in the silent room. "Oh my God," she stammered, her face burning. "I'm so sorry, you're never—" She spun around, nearly tripping over her feet, her heart hammering. Ethan's voice, calm and deep, cut through her panic. Are you okay? She dared a glance back, expecting anger, but found him studying her with an unreadable expression, one hand securing the towel. I should be asking you that, she managed, mortified. I'm so sorry, Mr. Caldwell. This has never happened before. I checked the schedule and you're never here at this time. And I didn't see the steam. And she clamped her mouth shut, forcing herself to stop rambling. To her shock, the corner of Ethan's mouth twitched a hint of amusement, breaking his stoic facade. Board meeting got canceled, he said, as if explaining himself to a cleaner was normal. These things happen. Aisha nodded, her hands shaking as she gathered her supplies. I'll come back later, or tomorrow, or never if you prefer. I understand if you want someone else to. That won't be necessary. He interrupted, his tone softer than she expected. Just, maybe check the bathroom first next time. Was he teasing her? She couldn't tell. Absolutely, she said, backing toward the door. I'll talk to management about the schedule. I'm so sorry again. She fled, her heart pounding, the service elevator's hum, barely drowning her embarrassment. She only realized she'd left her favorite yellow duster behind when she was safely downstairs, a bright betrayal on Ethan's bedroom floor. She groaned, leaning against the elevator wall. She'd just walked in on one of the most powerful men in Manhattan, half naked, and made a fool of herself. Her job was over. Yet as she replayed the moment, it wasn't just mortification that lingered. It was the way Ethan's eyes had softened, the way his voice held no trace of the coldness she'd expected. For a fleeting second, he'd seemed human. Ethan stood by the window in his penthouse, the city sprawling below. The morning's chaos replayed in his mind, not the canceled meeting, but Aisha's wide-eyed panic, her genuine apologies. He'd seen her a quiet presence in his home, but today was different. She wasn't just a cleaner, but a person vivid and real in a world he kept at arm's length. He glanced at the yellow duster abandoned on the floor, and something stirred in him. A curiosity, a spark, a disruption to the careful order of his life. He picked it up, tucking it into a drawer. This, he sensed, was only the beginning. Aisha Thompson's heart still raced as she pushed her cleaning cart down the service corridor of Sterling Towers the next morning. The memory of yesterday's disaster, walking in on Ethan Caldwell towel-clad and startlingly human, clung to her like humidity. She'd barely slept, her mind replaying his calm voice, the faint curve of his mouth that wasn't quite a smile. Had she imagined that flicker of amusement? More importantly, would she still have a job? Losing this gig meant delaying her design school dreams, a thought that tightened her chest. At 25, Aisha had fought too hard to let one mistake unravel everything. Growing up in Brooklyn's Bed-Stuy, where every dollar was stretched and every opportunity clawed for, she'd learned resilience early. Her mother's late shifts at the hospital and her father's absence, taken by a car accident when she was 12, had shaped a woman who didn't crumble under pressure. Yet, standing before Penthouse 52A, she felt like a trespasser in a world that didn't want her. She swiped her master key, the door's soft click echoing in the silent hall. Sterling Towers was Manhattan's elite playground, where wealth whispered in gold fixtures and imported stone. As a black woman in a Navy uniform, Aisha was invisible to most residents, a ghost who kept their lives flawless. But Ethan's penthouse was different. Stepping inside, she was struck again by its stark beauty. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, gilding the marble floors. The air held a faint cedar scent, crisp and impersonal. A leather sofa, a glass coffee table, a steel sculpture, all pristine, all untouched. No family photos softened the walls. No stray receipts cluttered the counters. It was a space designed to impress, not to live in. Aisha, whose tiny apartment brimmed with color-vibrant throws pinned-up sketches, plants crowding every corner, found the emptiness unsettling. Who was Ethan Caldwell beyond the billionaire in headlines? She began her routine dusting the entertainment console, her reflection sharp in its black screen. Dark curls escaped her bun, framing her brown eyes, which carried the weight of another late night. Her laptop, a hand-me-down from her cousin, had hummed past midnight as she tweaked a design project, a community center reimagined, with reclaimed wood and bold murals. It was the space she'd dreamed of creating since she was a girl, sketching floor plans on the back of her mother's grocery lists. Sterling Towers was her means to that end, each paycheck a step toward her degree. But the penthouse, with its cold perfection, stirred something else, a curiosity about the man who called it home. As she moved to the study, her clothes grazed a bookshelf, its titles heavy with finance and engineering. Tucked behind a volume on coding was something unexpected, a small, unframed photo. Aisha hesitated. Personal items were off limits, a rule drilled into every cleaner. But the image drew her in. Two young men, maybe 19, stood arm in arm, their smiles unguarded. One was unmistakably Ethan younger, his blue eyes bright with mischief. The other, with the same sharp jawline, had to be a brother. Their joy was palpable, frozen in a moment that felt worlds away from the sterile penthouse. Aisha's fingers lingered on the photo. Why hide this? She thought of her family photos taped to her fridge, her mom laughing at a cookout, her dad mid-dance at a block party. Those images grounded her. This one, buried in a corner, seemed like a secret. She tucked the photo back, her mind churning. The cleaning staff whispered about Ethan's past, a meteoric rise in tech, a high-profile breakup with socialite Olivia Harper, rumors of a tragedy no one dared name. Aisha had dismissed the gossip, but the photo gave it weight. She moved to the main bedroom, and her steps were slower now. The space was as immaculate as the rest, the king-sized bed perfectly made. Her yellow duster, left behind in yesterday's chaos, was gone. Had Ethan kept it, thrown it out? The thought made her cheeks warm. She shook it off, focusing on the task. As she polished the nightstand, her phone buzzed a text from Lucy, her roommate and fellow cleaner. Still employed. Or did Mr. Billionaire fire you for ogling? Aisha snorted, typing back. Not fired. Yet. The service phone rang, startling her. It was management. Miss Thompson. Mr. Caldwell's assistant called. He's requested you remain his assigned cleaner. No changes to the schedule. Aisha blinked, her pulse quickening. He wants me to keep working here. The manager's voice was clipped. Apparently. Consider yourself lucky. He's particular. The call ended, leaving Aisha staring at the phone. Why would Ethan, who barely acknowledged her existence, care who cleaned his home? The question gnawed at her as she finished her shift, her clothes moving in absent circles. She imagined confronting him, demanding answers, but the idea was absurd. Men like Ethan didn't explain themselves to women like her. Back in the service elevator, Aisha leaned against the wall, the cart's weight a familiar anchor. Her mind drifted to her childhood home, where every room told a story, scratched floors from dance parties' walls, marked by her crayon doodles. Ethan's penthouse was the opposite, a void begging for meaning. She wondered what it would take to make it feel like a home. A rug, maybe, in deep ochre. Shelves with books that were read, not displayed. Photos like the one she'd found reminded him of who he'd been. The elevator dinged, jolting her back. She pushed the cart out, her resolve firm. She'd keep her head down, do her job, and stay out of Ethan's orbit. But as she stepped into the gray dawn of Manhattan, she couldn't shake the image of that hidden photo, or the man who'd looked at her yesterday, not as a cleaner, but as a person. In his office across town, Ethan Caldwell stood at a window, the city a chessboard below. His suit was impeccable, his focus razor-sharp, yet his thoughts strayed to the penthouse, to the woman who'd stumbled into his morning, Aisha Thompson. He told himself he'd pulled her file after she left a routine check. 25. Brooklyn-born design student. Nothing remarkable except the way she'd apologized. Earnest, unpolished, authentic. Her honesty was a shockwave in his world of calculated moves and guarded words. He opened a drawer, the yellow duster inside a quiet accusation. He should return it and forget the incident. Instead, he closed the drawer, his fingers lingering. Something about Aisha. Her quick retreat. Her unguarded eyes had cracked the armor he'd worn since James's death. He didn't know what it meant, but wasn't ready to let it go. Aisha Thompson's hands trembled slightly as she pushed her cleaning cart into Sterling Tower's service elevator. The hum of machinery, a faint comfort against the knot in her stomach. 3 weeks had passed since her mortifying encounter with Ethan Caldwell, the tech billionaire, whose penthouse she still cleaned, despite expecting to be fired. His decision to keep her on, confirmed by a curt call from management, remained a puzzle. Was it pity, indifference, or something else, like the fleeting warmth in his blue eyes when he'd steadied her after she'd tripped over her supplies? Aisha shook her head, banishing the thought. Men like Ethan, white and wealthy, didn't notice women like her, a black cleaner from Bed-Stuy scraping by for a design degree. Yet each time she entered Penthouse 52A, her curiosity about him deepened, fueled by the hidden photo she'd found last week, Ethan and his brother, their smiles starkly contrasting with the cold space they'd once shared. The elevator dinged, and Aisha stepped onto the 52nd floor, the Manhattan skyline, a glittering backdrop through the hallway's glass walls. Sterling Towers was a world apart from her Brooklyn roots, where community meant cookouts and shared stoops, not sterile elegance. Here she was, invisible, her navy uniform, a cloak that rendered her part of the scenery. But Ethan's penthouse felt different, less like a job and more like a riddle. She swiped her master key, the door opening to a familiar scene. Marble floors bathed in morning light, minimalist furniture, untouched by life. The air was crisp, faintly cedar-scented, but the emptiness gnawed at her. Aisha's apartment, cramped with fabric swatches and half-finished sketches, was a riot of color and chaos. This place, she thought, needed a soul. She began her routine, dusting the glass coffee table, her mind drifting to her latest design project, a community library with warm wood shelves and vibrant murals. It was the kind of space she'd dreamed of creating since childhood, when she'd redrawn her bedroom's layout to escape the grief of her father's death. Killed in a car accident when she was 12, he'd been her first design critic, praising her crayon floor plans with a grin. The memory stung, but it drove her. She glanced at the study, where she'd found the photo of Ethan and his brother. She hadn't touched it since respecting the unspoken boundary, but its image lingered, two young men carefree, unaware of whatever tragedy had severed their bond. Today she felt bolder. The penthouse's starkness was an itch she couldn't ignore. As she cleaned the living room, her eyes fell on the mantel above the sleek fireplace, bare except for a single abstract sculpture. It was the perfect spot for something personal to anchor the space. She hesitated, then slipped into the study, retrieving the photo behind the engineering books. The brothers' smiles hit her anew, Ethan younger, his eyes bright with possibility. The other, likely James, his mirror in joy. Aisha's heart tugged. She knew what it was to lose someone, to carry their absence like a shadow. Before she could second-guess herself, she placed the photo on the mantel, centering it where the morning sun could catch it. The room felt different, instantly less like a showroom, more like a home. She stepped back, her pulse quickening. What was she doing? This wasn't her place. If Ethan noticed, he might see it as overstepping a breach of the invisible line between them. Yet as she resumed cleaning, the photo's presence steadied her. She moved to the main bedroom, polishing the nightstand where her yellow duster had once lain. It hadn't reappeared, and she hadn't dared ask. Her phone buzzed Lucy, her roommate, texting, "Still no billionaire sightings." Or, "Are you two besties now?" Aisha smirked, replying, "Just me and the marble." But the truth was, she scanned for signs of Ethan, every shift, half hoping, half dreading another encounter. The service elevator's chime broke her thoughts. She froze hearing footsteps in the hall. The door opened and Ethan stepped in his suit impeccable, but his expression distracted. He stopped short, seeing her in the living room. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice low, almost surprised. Aisha's mouth went dry. "Mr. Caldwell. I didn't expect. I'm almost done." His gaze flicked to the mantle, landing on the photo. Time stretched the silence heavy. "Why did you do that?" he asked, not angry but curious, his blue eyes searching hers. Aisha swallowed her instinct to apologize, warring with something braver. "It felt right," she said. "This place. It's beautiful, but it's so empty. That photo, it's like a piece of you. I thought it deserved to be seen." Her words hung between them, too honest, too raw. She braced for rebuke, but Ethan's face softened a crack in his polished armor. "You lost someone," he said, not a question. Aisha nodded, her throat tight. "My dad. A car accident when I was 12. I keep his picture on my fridge. It helps." Ethan's eyes held hers, recognition flickering. "James. My brother died in a crash too. 10 years ago." The admission landed like a stone rippling through the quiet. Aisha saw his weight, the same grief she knew too well. "I'm sorry," she said, meaning it. For a moment, they weren't billionaire and cleaners, just two people bound by loss. Ethan moved to the mantel, his fingers brushing the photo's edge. "I haven't looked at this in years," he murmured. "It hurt too much." Aisha took a chance. "Maybe it's not about the hurt. Maybe it's about remembering the good parts." He turned, his gaze intense, as if seeing her for the first time. "You're not what I expected, Aisha." Her name on his lips sent a jolt through her, unfamiliar and warm. She ducked her head, gathering her supplies. "I should finish up. I didn't mean to overstep." "You didn't," he said quickly. "Thank you for this." His voice was soft, almost vulnerable. Aisha nodded, her heart pounding, as she pushed her cart to the door. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Caldwell." "Ethan," he corrected, a ghost of a smile breaking through. She left the elevator's descent, doing little to calm her racing thoughts. She'd crossed a line, not just with the photo, but with him, and there was no going back. Ethan stood by the mantel in his penthouse, the photo a quiet accusation. James's smile, frozen in time, stirred memories he'd buried, late-night talks, shared dreams, a bond broken by a crash he still didn't understand. Aisha's act, so simple, had undone years of careful detachment. She saw the man, not the myth, which scared him as much as it intrigued him. He thought of her eyes, warm and unguarded, and the yellow duster still in his drawer. Something was shifting, and for the first time in years, Ethan wasn't sure he wanted to stop it. Aisha Thompson's fingers tightened around the handle of her cleaning cart as she rode the service elevator to the 52nd floor of Sterling Towers. The memory of her last shift in Ethan Caldwell's penthouse lingered like a half-remembered dream. Placing James's photo on the mantel, sharing her grief about her father, hearing Ethan call her by name, it had felt like crossing a threshold, one that blurred the lines between cleaner and billionaire black woman and white elite. At 25, Aisha was no stranger to boundaries. Growing up in Bed-Stuy, she'd navigated them daily, from skeptical teachers to dismissive store clerks. But Ethan's quiet thank you, Aisha, had stirred something dangerous: hope. Now, 2 days later, she braced for her next shift, unsure if their moment of connection was real or a fluke. Her design school dreams, funded by these grueling hours, demanded focus, not fantasies about a man whose world was galaxies from hers. The elevator dinged, and Aisha stepped into the familiar hush of Sterling Tower's top floor. Manhattan's skyline sparkled beyond the glass walls, a reminder of the city's ruthless hierarchy. Here, wealth was armor, and Aisha in her Navy uniform was invisible. A black woman whose presence was tolerated only as long as she kept the marble flawless. Ethan's penthouse, though, had begun to feel less like a job and more like a canvas, its emptiness a challenge to her designer's eye. She swiped her master key, the door opening to the now familiar expanse of marble and glass. Morning light flooded the space, catching the photo of Ethan and James on the mantel. It was still untouched, a small victory that made her smile. The room felt warmer for it, less like a museum. She began her routine, polishing the kitchen island, her mind drifting to her latest project, a community library with skylights and cozy reading nooks. It was the kind of space she'd imagined as a girl, sketching escapes from the grief of her father's death. Lost in thought, she didn't hear the elevator until it chimed. The penthouse door opened, and a woman stepped in her presence, like a cold snap. Tall, with sleek blonde hair and a cream silk dress, she moved with the confidence of someone who owned the air. Aisha froze, recognizing her instantly from society pages. Olivia Harper, Ethan's ex-fiancée, Manhattan's darling of public relations. Her green eyes swept over Aisha, sharp and assessing, before settling on a vase of lilies on the entry table. "Lovely touch," Olivia said, her voice smooth as glass, though Ethan always preferred orchids. She adjusted the flowers with a practiced hand, her diamond bracelet glinting. Aisha's stomach twisted. "Miss Harper." "I didn't know Mr. Caldwell isn't here." Olivia's smile was a blade. "Oh, I don't mind waiting. I'm sure you're used to working around complications." The word landed like a jab, laced with the assumption that Aisha was just the help, her blackness and uniform a footnote. Aisha straightened, her voice steady. "Building policy doesn't allow visitors when residents are absent." Olivia's laugh was light-cutting. "Policy? How diligent. Ethan mentioned you were thorough." Aisha's heart skipped. Ethan talked about her. Before she could process, Olivia glided to the living room, her heels clicking on the marble. She paused at the mantel, her gaze locking on James's photo. Her smile faltered just for a second before hardening. "This is new," she said, touching the frame. "Your idea, I presume." Aisha hesitated, sensing a trap. It seemed like it belonged there. Olivia turned, her eyes narrowing. Bold. But then Ethan's always had a soft spot for earnest types. The implication stung, painting Aisha as a charity case, her race and class a barrier. Olivia wielded effortlessly. Speaking of Ethan, Olivia continued, settling onto the leather sofa like it was her throne. "He's been under such pressure lately. That SEC investigation, for instance." She waved a hand as if it were trivial. Buried now, of course, but curious. All those accounting questions swept under the rug. Aisha's pulse quickened. SEC investigation. She knew nothing of Ethan's business, only the whispers of his wealth. Olivia's words were deliberate, a seed of doubt planted with surgical precision. "I wouldn't know," Aisha said, keeping her tone neutral. "I just clean." Olivia's smile widened, predatory. "Of course. But you're observant, aren't you? Ethan values that." The elevator chimed again, and Ethan stepped in, his suit crisp, but his expression stormy. "Olivia," he said, his voice ice. "What are you doing here?" Olivia rose, all grace. "Darling, I was just catching up with your staff." Her eyes flicked to Aisha, dismissive. "We were discussing your taste in decor." Ethan's gaze darted to Aisha, softening briefly before hardening on Olivia. Aisha, could you give us a moment? Aisha nodded, gathering her cart, but Olivia's voice stopped her. Oh, stay. You might find this educational. Ethan and I have history, you see. The kind that doesn't vanish with a few headlines. Aisha's cheeks burned, caught between fleeing and standing her ground. Ethan's jaw tightened. Enough, Olivia. This isn't your home anymore. The air crackled with unspoken tension, years of shared pain and power plays. Aisha pushed her cart to the door, her mind racing. Olivia's mention of the SEC investigation echoed a puzzle piece that didn't fit the Ethan she'd glimpsed grieving human real. She heard Olivia's parting shot as she reached the elevator. Be careful, Ethan. Not everyone's as innocent as they seem. The doors closed, but the warning lingered a shadow over Aisha's fragile trust. In the service break room, Aisha sank into a chair, her friend Lucy eyeing her over a coffee cup. Spill, Lucy demanded. You look like you saw a ghost. Aisha recounted the encounter, Olivia's elegance, her veiled threats, the SEC bombshell. Lucy whistled. Olivia Harper's bad news. Her family's old money is tied to half the city's power players. She's not just protecting Ethan. She's guarding her empire. Aisha stared at her hands calloused from work. Why tell me about the investigation? What's her game? Lucy leaned in. Control. She wants you rattled, maybe to push Ethan back into her orbit. Or to keep you from digging. Aisha's phone buzzed, a reminder of her design class deadline. She thought of her library project, its promise of community and warmth, unlike the penthouse's chill. Olivia's world, with its secrets and status, was a maze Aisha didn't belong in. Yet Ethan's face, raw with grief over James, haunted her. Was he hiding something? Or was Olivia twisting the truth? As she left the break room, the city's pulse thrummed outside, a reminder of the stakes. She was a cleaner, a dreamer, a black woman in a white world. But she wasn't invisible anymore, and that, she realized, made her a threat. Aisha Thompson's fingers hovered over her laptop's keyboard, the dim glow of the screen casting shadows across her cramped Brooklyn apartment. It was past midnight, and the hum of Bed-Stuy streets filtered through her window, car horns, laughter, the pulse of a city that never slept. At 25, Aisha was used to late nights balancing her cleaning job at Sterling Towers with design school assignments. But tonight, her focus wasn't on her community library project with its warm wood tones and vibrant murals. Instead, she was chasing a ghost, Ethan Caldwell, the white billionaire, whose penthouse had become more than a workplace since their shared moment over his brother James's photo. Olivia Harper's words from yesterday echoed like a warning. That SEC investigation. Curious, don't you think Aisha's gut churned? Was Ethan hiding something, or was Olivia playing games? She typed Ethan Caldwell SEC investigation into the search bar, her heart thudding. As a black woman, navigating Manhattan's elite circles, Aisha knew the cost of curiosity. In Sterling Towers, she was invisible, her navy uniform a barrier between her and the residents' world. But Ethan had seen her when they spoke of loss, his blue eyes raw with grief over James. That connection, fragile and unexpected, made Olivia's insinuations cut deeper. The search results loaded business articles praising Caldwell Enterprises' profiles of Ethan's tech empire, and buried in the archives, an 18-month-old headline, Caldwell Enterprises faces informal SEC inquiry. The article was vague mentions of accounting irregularities and voluntary cooperation, but the lack of follow-up was telling. Had it been buried as Olivia claimed, Aisha leaned back, her chair creaking. Her apartment, cluttered with fabric swatches and pinned-up sketches, felt like a sanctuary compared to Ethan's sterile penthouse. She thought of her father lost to a car accident at 12, and the photos on her fridge that kept him close. Ethan's hidden photo of James now on his mantle, thanks to her, was a bridge between their worlds. But Olivia's warning suggested a darker truth. Was Ethan the grieving brother she'd glimpsed, or a man tangled in secrets? Her roommate Lucy had been blunt in the break room. Olivia's not just stirring drama. Her family has stakes in this city. If she's pointing at Ethan, there's a reason. Aisha's fingers itched to dig deeper, but doubt gnawed at her. What right did she have to pry into his life? The next morning, Aisha rode the service elevator to the 52nd floor, her cleaning cart a familiar weight. Sterling Towers gleamed with wealth, its marble halls contrasting Bed-Stuy's gritty charm. As a black woman, she felt the city's hierarchy keenly residents' glances that skimmed over her security guards, who checked her ID twice. Ethan's penthouse, though, was a space where those rules seemed to bend. She swiped her key, stepping into the now familiar expanse of light and marble. James's photo stood on the mantel, a quiet testament to their shared scars. She began dusting her mind, racing. The SEC article had raised more questions than answers. If Ethan was innocent, why the secrecy? If guilty, what did that mean for the man who'd called her by name? Halfway through polishing the kitchen island, the elevator chimed. Ethan entered his suite crisp, but his expression weary, as if he'd fought a battle before breakfast. "Aisha," he said, his voice softer than usual. She froze, her cloth mid-swipe. "Mr. Caldwell, Ethan, I didn't expect you." His gaze flicked to the mantel, then back to her, a question in his eyes. "You're early today," he noted, loosening his tie. Aisha's resolve hardened. Olivia's seed of doubt had taken root, and she couldn't unsee it. "Can I ask you something?" she said, surprising herself. Ethan raised an eyebrow, leaning against the counter. "Go ahead." She took a breath, her heart pounding. "I heard about an SEC investigation. Something about your company a while back." Ethan's face darkened, his posture stiffening. "Where did you hear that?" he asked, his tone sharp but controlled. Aisha held his gaze, refusing to back down. "Does it matter? Is it true?" The silence stretched heavy with unspoken stakes. She thought of her father's accident, the police reports she'd pored over as a teen, searching for answers that never came. She wasn't that girl anymore, but the need for truth burned just as fiercely. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his guard slipping. "It's true," he admitted, his voice low. 18 months ago, the SEC looked into some accounting issues at Caldwell Enterprises. It was resolved quietly. Aisha's stomach twisted. Resolved how Olivia said it was buried. Ethan's eyes narrowed at Olivia's name, but he didn't deflect. She would say that. The investigation found nothing criminal, but it started because of James. Aisha's breath caught. Your brother Ethan nodded, moving to the mantel, his fingers brushing the photo. James was brilliant but restless. He found discrepancies in our books, money moving through accounts it shouldn't. He was digging into it when he died. The crash. I don't think it was an accident. The words landed like a blow, reshaping everything. Aisha saw the pain in Ethan's eyes, the same raw grief she'd felt at her father's funeral. You think someone killed him? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's jaw tightened. I've spent years trying to prove it. The SEC probe was part of that, but the evidence was too thin. Olivia's family. Her father, Charles Harper, was close to our CFO at the time. I think they know more than they've said. Aisha's mind raced. Olivia's taunt, her calculated smile, now felt like a warning. Why tell me this? She asked. Ethan met her gaze unguarded. Because you asked. And because you put his picture up there. You see things others don't. Her chest tightened, caught between trust and fear. Ethan's honesty was a gift, but it came with weight. She was a cleaner, a student, a black woman with no place in his world of power and secrets. Yet standing in his penthouse, she felt seen. "I'm sorry about James," she said, meaning it. "But if Olivia's involved, why is she still around?" Ethan's expression hardened. She thinks she can control the narrative. Always has. Before Aisha could press further, his phone buzzed, his assistant's voice urgent through the speaker. "Sir, the board's waiting." Ethan sighed, his mask sliding back into place. "We'll talk later," he said, his eyes lingering on her. Aisha finished her shift in a daze. James's photo, a silent witness. In the break room, Lucy pounced. "You look spooked." "What happened?" Aisha hesitated, then spilled everything: Olivia's hint, her search, Ethan's revelation. Lucy's eyes widened. "A murder cover-up, Aisha. This is way above your pay grade." Aisha stared at her calloused hands, shaped by years of work and dreaming. "Maybe. But Ethan trusted me with it. I can't just walk away." Lucy shook her head. "You're not just a cleaner to him, are you?" Aisha didn't answer, but as she left Sterling Towers, the city's skyline looming, she knew one thing. The truth, like her designs, was something she'd have to build herself. Aisha Thompson's sneakers pressed against the worn linoleum of her Brooklyn apartment, the faint buzz of Bed-Stuy's night filtering through her window. At 25, she was no stranger to late hours. Her desk, chaos of fabric swatches, sketch pads, and a laptop glowing with her latest design project, a community library with reclaimed wood shelves and sunlit reading nooks. But tonight her mind wasn't on the project. It was on Ethan Caldwell, the white billionaire, whose penthouse at Sterling Towers had become a strange mirror to her ambitions. His revelation about his brother James's death, possibly no accident tied to a buried SEC investigation, had shaken her. Olivia Harper's taunts, dripping with privilege, lingered too, painting Aisha as an outsider in Ethan's world. Yet his trust in her, like he'd said, "You see things others don't," felt like a spark, igniting something she wasn't ready to name. As a black woman cleaning Manhattan's elite spaces, Aisha knew her place in the city's hierarchy. With its marble halls and guarded doorkeepers, Sterling Towers was a fortress of wealth, where she was invisible. Her navy uniform, a ticket to tolerance, not belonging. But Ethan's penthouse, with its stark beauty and hidden grief, had begun to feel like a canvas. The photo of James on the mantel, placed there by her hand, was proof she could leave a mark. Her design instincts, honed through years of sketching escapes from her father's absence, saw potential in the space. Warm tones, textured fabrics, a story told through details. Could she bring that vision to life even here? The idea was bold and risky, but it stirred her restless heart. The next morning, Aisha rode the service elevator to the 52nd floor, her cleaning cart loaded with more than supplies. Tucked in her bag were sketches she'd stayed drafting: a reimagined living room for Ethan's penthouse, with sage green walls, a woven rug, and bookshelves to soften the glass and marble. It was a test, not just of her skills, but of her place in his world. She swiped her key, stepping into the familiar expanse of light and silence. James's photo caught the dawn, a quiet anchor. As she dusted, her mind churned. Ethan's confession about James had deepened their connection. But Olivia's shadow loomed, her hints of a cover-up tying Ethan to secrets Aisha couldn't yet unravel. She needed to focus on what she could control: her work and her dreams. Midway through polishing the kitchen island, she heard the elevator. Ethan stepped in his suit, slightly rumpled, his blue eyes carrying the weight of a sleepless night. "Aisha," he said, his voice warm but tired. "You're early again." She smiled, nerves tingling. "Habit keeps me ahead of the chaos." He nodded, loosening his tie, his gaze drifting to the mantel. "That photo. It's changed this place." Aisha seized the moment, her heart pounding. "Can I show you something?" she asked, pulling the sketches from her bag. Ethan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Go on," She spread the drawings on the coffee table, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. I've been thinking about this room. It's stunning, but it feels cold. These are ideas to warm it up. Colors, textures, things that make it yours. Ethan studied the sketches, his fingers tracing the lines of a bookshelf, a rug in deep ochre. You did this? He asked, his tone genuinely curious. Aisha nodded. It's what I'm studying. Designs about telling stories, making spaces feel like home. Ethan's eyes met hers, a spark of admiration there. You see this place differently. Most people see the price tag. Her cheeks warmed, but she pressed on. I could try a few things if you're open to it. Nothing permanent, just samples, maybe some fabrics. Ethan leaned back, considering. Do it. Let's see what you've got. Aisha blinked, stunned. Really? He smiled, a rare, unguarded curve. Really? I trust your eye. The words hit her like sunlight, validation she'd craved since her first crayon floor plans. She tucked the sketches away, her mind already spinning with possibilities. As she resumed cleaning, Ethan lingered, overseeing her adjust a curtain. You're building something real, he said softly. Not many people do that. The moment felt intimate, a quiet rebellion against the city's rigid lines, black and white, rich and poor. Aisha thought of her father, who'd praised her childhood designs, and her mother still working double shifts to support her dreams. This was for them too. Over the next week, she brought samples to the penthouse, a throw-in burnt orange, and a wooden tray for the coffee table. Ethan's reactions, nods, thoughtful comments bolstered her confidence. One evening, as she arranged a test swatch on the sofa, he appeared with a glass of water. It's already different, he said, gesturing to the room. Less like a showroom. Aisha smiled, her hands steady. That's the goal. A home, not a museum. Their eyes held the air, charged with something unspoken. Aisha broke the gaze, her heart racing. She was a cleaner, a student, a black woman with no claim to his world. Yet his respect, his trust, made her feel like more. Her phone buzzed. Lucy texting, "You're redesigning his place now." "Girl, you're in deep." Aisha didn't reply, but Lucy's words echoed. She was in deep, not just with the penthouse, but with Ethan. Olivia's warnings. The SEC mystery, James's death. They loomed like storm clouds. But here at this moment, Aisha felt like a creator, not a bystander. As she left, Ethan's voice stopped her. "Keep going, Aisha. You're good at this." She nodded, the elevator doors closing on a truth she couldn't ignore. She was designing more than a room. Ethan stared at the skyline in his office, his mind not on board meetings, but on Aisha's sketches. Her vision, warm, human, genuine, challenged the walls he'd built since James's death. He thought of the yellow duster in his drawer, a relic of their first meeting. She was changing his space, his perspective, and that scared him. But he wanted to see where it led for the first time in years. Aisha Thompson's phone buzzed on her bedside table, the sharp vibration pulling her from a restless sleep. The clock read 11:43 p.m. Far too late for messages. Rubbing her eyes, she squinted at the screen, her heart lurching at the sender's name, Ethan Caldwell. Need to talk. Urgent. Penthouse tonight. The words were stark, unlike the measured tone she'd come to associate with the white billionaire whose penthouse she cleaned at Sterling Towers. At 25, Aisha was used to navigating the edges of Manhattan's elite world as a black woman, her navy uniform, a shield, and a cage. But Ethan had become more than an employer. His trust in her designs, his grief over his brother James, and their shared scars had woven a fragile bond. Was this about Olivia Harper's cryptic warnings, the SEC investigation, or James's suspicious death. Her gut screamed caution, but the urgency in the text tugged at her. She swung her legs out of bed, the cool floor of her Brooklyn apartment grounding her. Bed-Stuy's night hummed outside, distant sirens, a neighbor's muffled music. Her room was a mosaic of her dreams. Fabric swatches pinned to the wall, sketches for a community library project scattered across her desk. Cleaning at Sterling Towers funded her design school, but Ethan's penthouse had become a canvas for her ideas. Sage green walls, woven rugs, a warmth she'd begun to bring to life. His approval of her sketches, his quiet, "You're good at this," had lit a fire in her. Yet with her diamond-sharp smile and hints of buried secrets, Olivia's visit cast a shadow. Aisha pulled on a hoodie, her mind racing. Lucy, her roommate, would call this reckless, but if Ethan needed her, she couldn't ignore it. The subway ride to Manhattan was a blur, the city's pulse starkly contrasting her nerves. Sterling Towers loomed, its glass facade a beacon of wealth. The night doorman, unfamiliar, barely glanced at her employee ID before waving her through. The service elevator felt colder than usual, its hum amplifying her unease. What if this was about her questions, her search for the SEC probe? She'd crossed a line prying into Ethan's world, a black cleaner daring to question a billionaire's past. The doors opened to the 52nd floor, the hallway dim. She knocked softly on the penthouse door, her keycard heavy in her hand. No answer. Swiping it, she stepped inside. The space was dark, except for a single lamp casting long shadows. "Mr. Caldwell." Her voice echoed small in the vast marble expanse. James's photo on the mantel caught the light, a silent witness. A rustle came from the study. Aisha's pulse spiked as Olivia Harper emerged, her black dress sleek, her blonde hair a halo in the lamplight. "Well, this is interesting," Olivia said, her smile all teeth. "You came." Aisha's stomach dropped. "You sent the text." Olivia's laugh was sharp. "Obviously. Though I'm curious, what did you think would happen? That Ethan would pour his heart out, sweep you off your feet?" Aisha's cheeks burned, but she held her ground. "What do you want?" Olivia stepped closer, her perfume cloying. "To protect what's mine. Ethan. My family's legacy. It's all connected." She held up her phone, displaying screenshots of Aisha's search history. Caldwell Enterprises SEC. James Caldwell accident. "You've been busy," Olivia purred, "digging into things you have no business touching." Aisha's blood ran cold. "That's private." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Nothing's private when you're sniffing around my family." Charles Harper. "My father built half of this city. You think a cleaner can threaten that?" The word cleaner landed like a slap laced with Aisha's racing class, a reminder of her place. Aisha's hands clenched. "I'm not threatening anyone. I want the truth about James." Olivia's smile turned venomous. "Truth. You're a distraction. A nobody Ethan's slumming with. I could send these searches to him, the press. Ambitious cleaner stalks billionaire's secrets. How long before you're back in Brooklyn jobless?" Aisha's mind raced. She thought of her mother working double shifts, her father's photo on the fridge, her library sketches, dreams she'd fought for. Olivia's threat was a blade, but Aisha wasn't defenseless. "Do it," she said, her voice steady. "If Ethan's who you say, he'll see through you." The elevator chimed, and Ethan stormed in, his suit jacket off, his face thunderous. "Olivia," he barked, his blue eyes flashing. "What the hell are you doing?" Olivia's composure flickered, but she recovered her tone, honeyed. "Just chatting with Aisha. She's very curious about you." Ethan's gaze snapped to Aisha, softening with concern. "Are you okay?" Aisha nodded, her throat tight. "She sent a text pretending it was you." Ethan's jaw clenched, turning to Olivia. Get out, now. Olivia laughed unfazed. You can't erase me, Ethan. We both know what's at stake, your company, my father James. She sauntered to the elevator, pausing by Aisha. Be careful, dear. Curiosity's dangerous for girls like you. The doors closed, leaving silence. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his anger reaching exhaustion. I'm sorry, he said. She's desperate to control this me, the past. Aisha's heart pounded. She showed me my search history. About the SEC James. She's watching me. Ethan's face darkened. Her father's tied to the mess James uncovered. She's protecting him, not me. He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, a fleeting anchor. You didn't have to come tonight, Aisha. But you did. Her eyes met his, the weight of their worlds between them. I had to know you were okay. In the break room later, Lucy pounced. You went to his penthouse at midnight. Are you insane? Aisha recounted Olivia's trap and Ethan's rescue. Lucy shook her head. Olivia's not playing. Her family's power runs deep, and you're in her crosshairs. Aisha stared at her hands, calloused but steady. She thought of her library, her designs in Ethan's penthouse, and the photo of James. She was a black woman in a white world, but she wasn't invisible, not to Ethan anymore. As she left Sterling Towers, paparazzi lingered outside their cameras, a new threat. Olivia's game was escalating, but Aisha's resolve was stronger. She'd build her future truth by truth, design by design. Aisha Thompson's sneakers scuffed the worn pavement of a quiet Manhattan side street, her breath visible in the chilly morning air. At 25, she was no stranger to the city's contrasts. Bed-Stuy's vibrant chaos versus Sterling Towers' sterile wealth. But today, her world felt tilting. Olivia Harper's trap, 2 nights ago luring her to Ethan Caldwell's penthouse with a fake text, had left her shaken. The white socialite's threat to paint Aisha a black cleaner as a scheming gold digger still echoed her screenshots of Aisha's search history, a digital sword. Yet Ethan's fierce defense, his hand brushing hers, had steadied her. His words about James's death, possibly a murder tied to Charles Harper's corruption, burned in her mind. Now, a cryptic message from an unknown number had led her here to a small cafe, far from Sterling Towers' glare, to meet someone named Sophia. Aisha pushed open this cafe door, the scent of coffee and pastries, a brief comfort. Her life cleaning to fund design school, sketching community libraries with warm wood and bright murals, felt distant. Ethan's penthouse, where she'd begun adding sage green throws and wooden accents, was no longer just a job. It was a space where she'd glimpsed his grief, trust, a connection that defied their worlds. As a black woman in Manhattan's elite circles, Aisha knew the risks of stepping out of place, but Olivia's game and Ethan's truth had pulled her in. She scanned the room, spotting a woman in a corner booth, her red hair striking against a worn jacket. The woman looked up, her eyes haunted, but resolute. Aisha, she asked. Aisha nodded, sliding into the seat. You're Sophia. Sophia nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of a coffee mug. James's fiancée. Or, I was before he died. Aisha's heart clenched. James, Ethan's brother, whose photo she'd placed on the penthouse mantel, was the thread tying her to this mystery. I tried to reach you after I saw your name in the news, Sophia said, her voice low. You and Ethan, it's everywhere. Olivia's people blocked me, but I had to try. Aisha's pulse quickened. The paparazzi outside Sterling Towers, snapping photos after Olivia's stunt, had turned her life into tabloid fodder. Why me, she asked. Sophia's gaze was steady. Because you're asking questions like James did. And because Ethan trusts you. Aisha leaned forward, the cafe's hum fading. Ethan told me James found something, money moving through accounts tied to Charles Harper. He thinks the crash wasn't an accident. Sophia's face tightened, and old pain surfaced. James was brilliant, an artist with numbers. He saw patterns others missed. A month before he died, he found transfers in Caldwell Enterprises books. Millions funneled through shell companies. He traced them to Harper's network. She reached into her bag, pulling out a small leather-bound notebook, its pages cramped with James's handwriting. He gave me this and told me to keep it safe. I was too scared then, but you're not. Aisha took the notebook, her hands trembling. Dates, amounts, and coded names filled the pages. Evidence of corruption, maybe murder. Why didn't you go to the police? She asked. Sophia's laugh was bitter. I tried. Harper's reach is long, cops, lawyers, media. They called me unstable, a grieving girlfriend chasing ghosts. Ethan wanted to protect James and told him to back off. But James believed in truth no matter the cost. Aisha's throat tightened. She thought of her father lost to a car accident, the unanswered questions she'd buried. Like you, Sophia added, her eyes piercing. You're risking everything to know. The weight of the notebook felt like a vow. Aisha's life, her mother's sacrifices, her design, dreams, her fight as a black woman in a white world had taught her to keep her head down. But Ethan's trust, his raw confession about James, had changed the rules. What do I do with this? She asked. Sophia leaned in. Find the proof James couldn't. Harper's still hiding it, and Olivia's his gatekeeper. But be careful, Ethan's close to the truth, and they'll do anything to stop him. Aisha nodded, her resolve hardening. She thought of her library sketches and how she built hope from chaos. This was no different, just more dangerous. As she left the cafe, the notebook tucked in her bag, Manhattan's pulse felt sharper, its skyscrapers looming like sentinels. She caught the subway back to Brooklyn, her mind racing. In her apartment, she spread the notebook's pages on her desk, and the coded entries were a puzzle she wasn't sure she could solve. Her phone buzzed. Lucy, her roommate, texting. You okay? I saw your face in a gossip rag. Billionaire's mystery woman. Trouble's coming. Aisha didn't reply. She thought of Sterling Towers, where she was invisible, a black cleaner in a white empire. Yet Ethan had seen her and trusted her with his pain, his home, and her designs. Now Sophia had entrusted her with James's legacy. In the penthouse, Aisha's next shift felt different. She adjusted a new throw on the sofa, its burnt orange hue, a quiet rebellion against the marble chill. James's photo watched from the mantel, a reminder of the stakes. Ethan was absent, but his presence lingered in the space she was reshaping. Her phone buzzed again, a news alert about Caldwell Enterprises' speculation about Ethan's erratic behavior. Olivia's handiwork, no doubt. Aisha's fingers tightened on the fabric. She was no detective, no hero. She was a designer, a dreamer, a black woman with everything to lose. But James's notebook, burning a hole in her bag, demanded action. She'd finish what he started for Ethan, for truth, for the part of her that refused to stay invisible. Aisha Thompson's heart pounded as she pushed her cleaning cart through the service entrance of Sterling Towers, the familiar weight a flimsy shield against the risk she was about to take. At 25, she'd navigated Manhattan's elite world as a black woman with caution, her navy uniform marking her as invisible. But tonight, invisibility was her weapon. The notebook from Sophia, James Caldwell's fiancée, burned in her bag, pages of coded transfers linking Charles Harper, Olivia's father, to corruption and possibly James's murder. Aisha's life cleaning to fund design school sketching, warm libraries, reshaping Ethan Caldwell's penthouse with sage green throws had collided with a truth too heavy to ignore. She was no detective, but Ethan's trust grief over his brother and Sophia's plea had made retreat impossible. The service elevator hummed, carrying her to the 48th floor, where Olivia's old apartment, suite 48B, sat unused since her breakup with Ethan. Aisha's master key, a cleaner's privilege, was her only way in. She'd studied James's notebook, cross-referencing dates with Sophia's tips, and found a lead Harper's shell companies were registered to this address. With her iron grip on secrets, Olivia might have left evidence here. Aisha's plan was reckless break and search escape, but Sterling Tower's rigid schedules gave her a narrow window. Her phone buzzed, Lucy, her roommate, texting. "This is crazy, Aisha. If Harper catches you, you're done." Aisha didn't reply. She thought of her father lost to a car accident. The unanswered questions she'd buried. This was for James, Ethan, and the black girl who refused to stay small. The elevator dinged the 48th floor silent under dim lights. Aisha pushed her cart to 48B, her key trembling. The door clicked open, revealing a space frozen in time. Mahogany panels, velvet drapes, the scent of Olivia's perfume, lingering like a ghost. Her heart raced. She was a cleaner, not a thief, but the line blurred as she moved to the study, her flashlight sweeping the walls. Olivia's taste for hidden compartments, as Sophia mentioned, guided her. Aisha's fingers traced a panel behind a bookshelf, catching a slight indentation. A soft click, and it swung open, revealing a USB drive and a stack of papers. She grabbed them, her breath shallow. The top document detailed payments to a medical examiner, dated days after James's accident. Her blood ran cold, proof of a cover-up. A floorboard creaked behind her. Aisha spun her flashlight, landing on Charles Harper, his silver hair stark in the dark, his smile chilling. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice smooth as venom. "You're far from your usual duties." Fear gripped her, but she clutched the evidence. "I know what you did to James," she said, her voice steady, despite her shaking hands. Harper's eyes narrowed. "Such accusations." "My daughter warned me you were trouble." Footsteps echoed in the hall. Two men in dark suits, not security, their faces hard. Aisha's mind raced. She was a black woman in a billionaire's domain alone, with no one to trust. Harper stepped closer, his tone patronizing. "You're meddling in things you can't comprehend as James did. Hand over what you found and we can forget this." Aisha's grip tightened on the USB. She considered her mother's sacrifices, library sketches, and Ethan's raw confession. "James deserved better," she said. "So does Ethan." Harper's smile vanished. "Take it," he barked to his men. As one lunged, a voice cut through the dark. "Stop!" Olivia merged, her black dress a shadow, her face pale but resolute. "Let her go, father." Aisha's jaw dropped. Olivia the manipulator was defying Harper. Harper's face twisted. "Olivia, don't be foolish. She's a threat." Olivia's eyes met Aisha's, a storm of guilt and resolve. "No, you are. I helped you hide James's death thinking it protected us. But it's blood money and I'm done." She moved to Aisha's side, her voice firm. "There's a service elevator in the bedroom. Go." Aisha hesitated, stunned by Olivia's betrayal of her father. Harper's men froze, unsure. "You'll regret this," Harper hissed. Olivia's hand shook, but she held her ground. "I already do." Aisha bolted, clutching the evidence, her sneakers silent on the carpet. She found the service elevator, its ancient hum a lifeline. As the doors closed, she heard Harper's voice, cold and furious, but Olivia's defiance echoed louder. The elevator descended, and Aisha's breath ragged. She thought of Bed-Stuy, where survival meant knowing when to fight. Olivia's change, perhaps guilt, or a crack in her armor had saved her, but the USB in her hand was a ticking bomb. She was a black cleaner, designer, and woman with everything to lose, but she'd crossed a line that Harper couldn't forgive. Aisha locked the door in her apartment, the USB and papers on her desk like a challenge. Her phone buzzed. "Lucy." You alive? Aisha typed. Barely. Got proof. Need help. She thought of Ethan, his penthouse now home. With her touches his trust, a weight she carried. Olivia's sacrifice. James's notebook. Sophia's courage. They were threads in truth she couldn't abandon. Outside Manhattan's skyline glittered a city of power and secrets. Aisha wasn't invisible anymore, and that made her dangerous. Aisha Thompson's hands trembled as she clutched the USB drive and papers, the evidence of Charles Harper's crimes, a heavyweight in her cleaning cart. The service elevator of Sterling Towers descended with a groan each floor, bringing her closer to a reckoning. At 25, Aisha had navigated Manhattan's elite world as a black woman, with quiet resilience, her Navy uniform a cloak of invisibility. But tonight, she was anything but invisible. The break-in at Olivia Harper's old apartment, the confrontation with Charles and Olivia's shocking betrayal of her father, had thrust Aisha into a storm she'd never imagined. James Caldwell's notebook, given by his fiancée Sophia, and the USB proof of Harper's role in James's murder were her weapons now. Her life cleaning to fund design school sketching. Warm libraries reshaping Ethan Caldwell's penthouse was forever changed. The elevator doors opened to Sterling Towers' lobby, a chaos of flashing cameras and shouting reporters. Aisha's heart pounded. Her roommate Lucy had texted minutes ago FBI in the lobby. Reporters everywhere. Hurry. Outside Manhattan's skyline glittered a city of power and secrets where Aisha, a black cleaner from Bed-Stuy, had no place. Yet here she was holding the truth that could topple an empire. She pushed through the crowd, her uniform stark against the suits and microphones. Faces turned, some curious, others dismissive. A black woman in a cleaner's role wasn't news. Then she saw them FBI agents in dark jackets, their eyes sharp. Beside them, Lucy waved frantically, a reporter at her side, skeptical but ready. Aisha's gaze caught another figure. Olivia Harper poised at the lobby's center, her blonde hair gleaming under the chandeliers. The white socialite's face was pale, her elegance, a mask for the turmoil Aisha had glimpsed in Suite 48B. Olivia's voice rose clear and commanding, silencing the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a statement. My father, Charles Harper, orchestrated the murder of James Caldwell to conceal decades of financial corruption. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras surged forward, capturing Olivia's every word. I helped hide it. She continued, her voice cracking. But tonight it ends. Aisha's breath caught. Olivia's confession, raw and public, was a lifeline she hadn't expected. An FBI agent approached Aisha, his badge glinting. Miss Thompson, we were told you have evidence. She nodded, handing over the USB and papers with shaking hands. Payments to the medical examiner, shell company transfers. It's all here, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. The agent scanned the documents, his expression hardening. This is significant. Stay close. Aisha stepped back, her eyes finding Ethan Caldwell across the lobby. The billionaire, still in handcuffs from a false arrest tied to Harper's schemes, stood tall, his blue eyes locked on her. Pride and fear mingled in his gaze. A silent vow steadied her. The lobby doors burst open and Charles Harper was led in. His silver hair disheveled, his face twisted with rage. This is a farce, he shouted, but the agent's grip was firm. Reporters swarmed, their questions a cacophony. Aisha's mind flashed to James's photo on Ethan's mantle, the smile she'd brought into the light. This was for him, for Ethan, for the black girl who dared to see the truth. Olivia's voice carried on, detailing Harper's network, bribes, threats, a web that had snared Manhattan's elite. Her confession, born of guilt and defiance, was a crack in the city's gilded armor. Lucy reached Aisha, squeezing her arm. You did it, girl. But those cameras, they're on you now. Aisha glanced outside where the paparazzi captured her every move. Headlines would follow. Cleaner exposes billionaire's crimes, or worse, gold digger's gambit. As a black woman, she knew how the story would be spun: her race and class, a lens for judgment. Yet Ethan's presence, his trust, anchored her. The agent returned, his voice low. "We're releasing Mr. Caldwell. This evidence clears him." Aisha's knees weakened, relief flooding her. Ethan crossed the lobby, his handcuffs gone, and pulled her into a fierce embrace. "You did this," he whispered, his voice thick. "You brought James back." The crowd pressed closer, but Aisha felt untouchable. She thought of Bed-Stuy, her mother's sacrifices, her library sketches, dreams she'd fought for. Sterling Towers, where she'd been invisible, was now a stage for her courage. Ethan's penthouse, warmed by her designs, was a home because of her. Olivia's sacrifice. Sophia's notebook. Lucy's support. They'd woven a truth stronger than Harper's lies. Outside, Manhattan's pulse thrummed, a city reshaped by one woman's resolve. Aisha wasn't just a cleaner. She was a designer of justice, a black woman who'd rewritten the rules. Aisha Thompson stood in the living room of the penthouse at Sterling Towers, her fingers adjusting a sage green throw draped over the leather sofa. Once a sterile expanse of marble and glass, the space now hummed with warmth. Woven rugs, wooden bookshelves filled with dog-eared novels, and soft lighting that made Manhattan's skyline beyond the windows feel like part of the home. At 26, Aisha had transformed this penthouse and her own life. A year ago, she'd been a black cleaner, navigating the city's elite world, her navy uniform a barrier between her Bed-Stuy roots and the wealth of Sterling Towers. Now, she was a designer, a graduate, a partner to Ethan Caldwell, and soon, a mother. The journey, unveiling Charles Harper's crimes, clearing Ethan's name, exposing James's murder, had reshaped them both. The penthouse was theirs now, a shared sanctuary. Aisha's touches were everywhere. The ochre curtains she'd sewn, the reclaimed wood coffee table. She'd sourced the photo of James on the mantel, now joined by others. Her at design school graduation. Ethan, laughing at Lucy's wedding. Even a tentative snapshot of Olivia Harper and Sophia in Barcelona. The trial of Charles Harper had dominated headlines, his empire crumbling under the weight of decades of corruption. Olivia's testimony, raw and unflinching, had been pivotal, her public confession in Sterling Towers' lobby, a turning point. Harper was behind bars, and Caldwell Enterprises had weathered the storm, its stock rebounding under Ethan's transparent leadership. Aisha, once invisible, was now a name whispered in awe and skepticism. A black woman who'd toppled a titan. She smoothed her blouse, her hand resting briefly on her still flat stomach. The baby, a surprise discovered weeks ago, felt like a promise of new beginnings. Her design career was taking root. She'd just finished a project for the James Caldwell Foundation, a gallery in Brooklyn, showcasing young artists. The space, with its exposed brick and vibrant murals, echoed her childhood dreams of community and creation. Growing up in Bed-Stuy, where stoops were stages and block parties were family, Aisha had learned to build hope from hardship. Her mother's sacrifices, double shifts, endless encouragement had carried her here. Her father's absence, a car accident at 12, still ached, but his memory fueled her drive. The elevator chimed, and Ethan stepped in his casual sweater, a far cry from the rigid suits of a year ago. His blue eyes softened as they found her, a smile breaking through the fatigue of a long board meeting. "You're glowing," he said, crossing the room to wrap his arms around her. Aisha leaned into him, the scent of his cologne grounding her. "Just happy," she murmured. "The gallery's done. Sophia loves it." Ethan's smile widened. She called me crying, said James would have been proud. The James Caldwell Foundation funding arts for troubled teens was Ethan's tribute to his brother, whose murder had once defined him. Now that she was running the program, Sophia started painting again, her canvases vivid with healing. Aisha pulled back her eyes, tracing the penthouse. "This place feels like us now," she said. Ethan nodded, his hand resting on hers. "Because of you. You made it a home." She thought of their first meeting, her stumbling into his bathroom, his towel-clad surprise, her mortified retreat. That Aisha scraping by, dreaming of design school, felt distant, yet close. Her courage, the thread that led here. The media frenzy after Harper's arrest had tested them. Headlines like "Cleaners Rise" or "Billionaire's Charity Case" had stung their racial and class differences, a lens for judgment. As a black woman, Aisha knew the world's skepticism, but Ethan's unwavering support and refusal to hide their love had silenced the noise. "The board approved full funding for the foundation," Ethan said, his voice pulling her back. "Sophia's program launches next month." Aisha's heart swelled. She's giving kids what James lost a chance to create. Ethan's eyes held hers, a mix of pride and old pain. "And you're giving them a space to do it. Your gallery, it's changing lives." Aisha's cheeks warmed. Her career, once a distant dream, was real now. She'd designed the gallery pro bono, pouring her soul into every detail, a testament to her roots and future. "I learned from you," she said softly. "You rebuilt your company, your life after everything." Ethan's hand moved to her stomach gently. "And now we're building this." Aisha smiled, her fears about motherhood, about navigating their worlds, easing in his touch. They'd faced Harper's lies, Olivia's schemes, and a city's judgment, and emerged stronger. In Europe, Olivia had now donated to the foundation, a quiet gesture of amends. Sophia's return to art and her program leadership was another victory. Aisha thought of her mother, who'd cried at her graduation, and Lucy, who'd toasted her at the gallery opening. Her life, once defined by survival, was now a tapestry of love and purpose. Outside Manhattan sparkled a city that had tried to break them, but couldn't. From this penthouse to the gallery, Aisha's designs were her legacy, proof she'd transcended her past. She wasn't just a cleaner who'd exposed a crime. She was a black woman who'd redesigned her future and Ethan's with courage and creativity. As they stood together, the penthouse warmly embraced. Aisha knew this was home, not because of marble or views, but because of them. Aisha Thompson stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse at Sterling Towers, her fingers tracing the edge of a woven rug she'd chosen for the living room. Snow-dusted Manhattan's skyline outside, softening the city's sharp edges. At 26, Aisha had reshaped this space, once a cold expanse of marble and glass, into a home vibrant with sage-green throws, reclaimed wood shelves, and photos that told their story. A year ago, she'd been a black cleaner, invisible in the elite world of Sterling Towers, scraping by to fund her design school dreams. Now she was a designer, a mother-to-be, and Ethan Caldwell's partner, their love a defiance of the city's rigid lines. Their journey exposing Charles Harper's crimes, clearing Ethan's name, avenging James's murder, had forged a bond unbreakable by headlines or history. The mantle held pride of place, James's photo at its heart, his smile, a quiet anchor. Around it were new memories. Aisha's graduation, Ethan at Lucy's wedding, a snapshot of Olivia Harper and Sophia in Barcelona, their tentative smiles a testament to redemption. The trial of Harper, whose corruption had fueled James's death, had reshaped Manhattan's elite. Sealed by Olivia's testimony and Aisha's evidence, his conviction had toppled a dynasty. Caldwell Enterprises thrived, its transparency a model for reform, while the James Caldwell Foundation, led by Sophia, gave young artists a voice. Aisha's gallery for the foundation, with its Brooklyn brick and vivid murals, was her proudest work, a bridge between her Bed-Stuy roots and her future. Aisha's hand rested on her stomach, the faint curve of their child, a promise of tomorrow. Growing up in Bed-Stuy, where stoops were gathering places and block parties were family, she'd learned to weave hope from hardship. Her mother's double shifts and her father's absence, taken by a car accident at 12, had shaped her resilience. As a black woman, Aisha knew the world's weight tabloids had called her a gold digger, their lens of race and class twisting her truth. But Ethan's love, unwavering through paparazzi and boardroom battles, had silenced the noise. Their penthouse, now theirs, was a testament to what they'd built: love, trust, a home. The elevator chimed, and Ethan stepped in his sweater, casual, his blue eyes bright with warmth. "Caught you daydreaming?" he teased, crossing the room to wrap his arms around her. Aisha leaned into him, his cologne a familiar comfort. "Just thinking about how far we've come," she said, her voice soft. Ethan's gaze followed hers to the mantel. "James would have loved you," he said, his tone thick with memory. "He saw beauty in everything like you do." Aisha smiled, thinking of her gallery, her designs, and the life growing inside her. "He's still here in this," she said, gesturing to the room, the photos, their shared dreams. Ethan pulled away, a playful glint in his eyes. "I have something for you." He moved to a drawer in the old desk, the one piece of furniture Aisha had insisted on keeping. From it, he drew a familiar yellow duster, its bright hue a relic of their first meeting. Her stumbling into his bathroom, his towel-clad surprise, her mortified retreat. Aisha laughed, her hand covering her mouth. "You kept that." Ethan grinned, holding it up. "It started everything. A black cleaner with courage walked into my life and changed it." Her heart swelled, the memory of that. Aisha, scared, dreaming, determined, still vivid. "Let's frame it," Aisha said, half joking. Ethan's eyes lit up. "Why not?" "Right next to James." They moved to the mantel, Aisha fetching a small frame from her design supplies. Together they placed the duster inside its absurdity, perfect against the photo of James's smile. "A reminder," Ethan said, his voice soft, "of where we began, how far we've come." Aisha nodded, her fingers brushing his. She thought of Bed-Stuy, where every home told a story, and Sterling Towers, where she'd been invisible until Ethan saw her. Their love had defied a city's rules, rewriting their story with truth and courage. The penthouse glowed with their choices, her curtains, his books, their shared laughter. Outside, snow fell, blanketing Manhattan in quiet possibility. Aisha's career was blooming. Her gallery had drawn attention, with offers for new projects rolling in. The foundation expanded, and Sophia's leadership was a beacon for change. Olivia, in Europe, had found a quieter path, her donation to the foundation a step toward amends. Aisha's mother, now retired, visited often, and her pride in Aisha's journey was a warmth that rivaled the penthouse's light. Lucy, ever the skeptic, had toasted their baby news with, "You redesigned a billionaire's life, girl." "What's next?" Aisha turned to Ethan, his eyes holding hers like she was the only thing in the world. "What's next?" she echoed, smiling. He kissed her forehead, his hand on her stomach. "Everything, with you." She thought of their first meeting, the duster's chaos, and every moment since: grief, danger, love, triumph. She was a black woman who'd built a home, not just in marble, but in truth, where past wounds rested and future dreams bloomed. The duster framed beside James was their promise: no matter the odds, they'd design a life together, beautiful and true.